Hello, good morning, everybody, and a warm welcome to our next presentation at our MBB's German Select Conference. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Harald Haselmann, CEO of Eckert Ziegler, and he will guide us through the presentation and the equity story. Before we begin, just a housekeeping note, this conference is being recorded and all participants are in a listen-only mode. If you have any questions, please submit them via the chat box, and during the Q&A later on, we will address them to Mr. Haselmann. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Mr. Haselmann. The floor is yours.
Good morning. Yes, Harald Hasselmann speaking here. Very much welcome to all the listeners. I'm going to guide you through the presentation and very much interested to listen to your questions and comments. So starting with the first slide, you see here the headquarters. Next one, please. What is it all about? We are a supplier of radioactive substance. Radioactive substance is used for everything in industry and medical, but atomic bombs and nuclear power plants. So there is a huge variety of components where you need radioactive substances, and we are the main supplier for pharma and industry. Next, please. Our business is divided in two markets. One is, as I mentioned, industry, that is measurement and calibration, all items where you are in the industry sector and you want to be very precise in calibration, in measuring to find out whether something works, doesn't work, is thick enough, is bright enough. You need isotopes in order to have extremely precise measurement. More interesting because it's growing, it's the engine of our company, is nuclear medicine. To find diagnosis, to perform diagnosis, and later on to go into therapy, you can treat cancer and other diseases with radioactive isotopes. And that is a growing industry because all the companies are entering into that market. Next one, please. First, into the industry. Here you see that is 50% of our business, and you see small batteries, small sources in the length of 10 to 20 centimeters, and they are then used in the machines in order to work in food industry, in building industry, in recycling, refurbishment, and oil well logging, that is gas and oil industry, to find new oil sources. Next, please. Here you see some pictures how the products of the industry of the isotope product segment looks like. Small batteries produced in North America, in Europe, in South America. And there is also one area, I will talk about that later. These are generators you see on the right side of the picture that is for different kind of diseases where with the help of radioactive substances you want to find out what specific disease you have, and that is done with an imaging procedure using that generator. Next. In the medical area, there we have the principle to lock a medical product together with a radioactive substance. What you see on the picture, on the left side of the picture, has a sick surface, and if you have an antibody, a molecule, a peptide, and that blocks to the cancer cell, you can combine that medical product together with what you see on the right side, the radioactive substance produced by Eckert and Ziegler, and then in an imaging procedure examination, a PET-CT, you see the illumination of the radioactive substance, or if you have a stronger active component, you can destroy the cancer. And that is done with product from Eckert and Ziegler. Next, please, in a huge variety. Next. This is our management team. I am CEO of the company together with two other colleagues of the executive board, and then we have a huge variety of other colleagues entering our executive committee for marketing and sales and production. Next, please. So, talking about the medical industry in the radioactive radioligand therapy is really growing. And you see here a lot of companies, big pharma companies, and they are all acquiring smaller ones, doing clinical studies in the area of radiotherapy. And that's why big companies like BMS or AstraZeneca, Bayer, Novartis, Eli Lilly, they are paying big amounts for these clinical study companies. You see the amounts they are paying: 2 billion, 3 billion, even 4 billion has been paid. And this is now a growing industry where more and more companies are acquired, and the industry is growing. And we are aiming to supply all these companies, being smaller companies or big companies, with our radioactive isotopes. We see a market overall of 30 billion in the years to come. That's why we are very exciting about the future in that area. Next, please. Here you see some of our products, and these are chemical compounds called gallium, lutetium, actinium, yttrium, and they are then delivered to some companies I mentioned here, to those smaller or bigger companies using our radioisotopes for their businesses to label, to mark their medical compound, their peptide, together with our radioisotope, and then they have the ready-made product to either do the diagnosis or the therapy. The combination of both is called theranostics. Next, please. If you look to the most advanced radioisotope, that is lutetium on the left side, or actinium, that is the next big thing where everybody is really working on it. These are just two examples where we are supplying companies with our radioisotopes. And then what we entered in the last 2 years is a service business, contract manufacturing business, where we perform during the clinical studies the examination, the labeling process of the pharma product together with our radioisotopes, then to make a ready-made product, which is then delivered to the hospitals for running their clinical studies. And that is called CMO, clinical manufacturing. And we are offering that services not only in Europe, but also in North America. And we are also doing opening a new facility in China. Next, please. Next. So I'm always talking about some highlights of the last quarter, because we are talking about the first half year of 25. What has happened in the business, in the medical business? We are distributing a product from a company called TecDAX in Australia that is used based on our isotope gallium, and then labeled together with their pharma product called Illuccix, and that is used for the diagnosis of prostate cancer. We are bringing people together in North America, and we have done this now for the third time. That is the Eckert Ziegler Boston Theranostics Forum that is in the middle. And we entered a new strategy cooperation with a pharma company called Pentixa to do their clinical manufacturing work. This is ongoing news to stress or to demonstrate that not only the industry is growing, but also the level of cooperation which we are doing is increasing. Next, please. So let's talk about the numbers. Here you see last year's figures for 24, and you see in red the business of the medical, in green the industry isotope business. Basically, last year the revenue was split 50-50 in terms of profitability. The margin is higher in the medical, and that is to come also in the years to come, because we see that strong growth momentum in medical. And if you read medical journals, you will find that radioisotopes is becoming more and more the standard therapy in the detection of cancer, but also even more interesting in the area of treatment. All in all, we have 1,000 employees, a little bit more in industry, less than in medical. That is why also the margin is higher in the red one in the medical business. Next, please. Next. So how does the first half year look like? Sales were growing by 2%, and the EBIT adjusted, that is a number which we are reporting, is even stronger growing. That is why we have an EBIT adjusted margin that is adjusted by currency effect, by divestments or acquisition topics, and also by hyperinflation topics which we are suffering in Argentina. That is adjusted in the EBIT number, and what you see here is a stronger growth in the bottom line by 9%. For those who are interested to see what overall is happening, that is a net income number that is growing by almost 20% all over. Next, please. In the medical, we have a stronger sales performance of here, as you see, double digit, and an even stronger bottom line performance of 40% in the EBIT adjusted. That is due to the case that we are not only supplying customers with our products, but that we are also going into license deals, and we are offering our technique to other that they can copy the technique. And we have done a license deal last year, we have done a license deal this year, and that is basically strong top line growing, but even stronger than increase the profitability. And that's why here in the EBIT adjusted, we have a strong growth. We were suffering a little bit by currency. You know that the dollar weakens, and that's why if currency adjusted, the sales growth would be slightly stronger. But it is as it is. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. Next one, please. In the area of isotope, there the first half year was weaker. We have had an extremely strong performance of last year. In the beginning of this year, we were suffering by a cyber attack, and the cyber attack was causing a delay in the sales uptake, which is only to happen in the second part of this year. That's why the performance of isotope was strong, disappointing, but I'm pretty confident by the end of the year we will not only recover, but also have here a growth momentum compared to last year. Next one, please. Here, for those who are interesting to see what is happening on the EBIT reported and then EBIT adjusted, you see what is done here, and you see the adjustments which we are doing from the top line base. Is not really a lot, but we want to be here precise. And as I mentioned, it is hyperinflation, it is adjustments, divestments, things like that. Not really a big difference in medical, in isotope, and overall, it is a smaller amount. Next one, please. So looking to the regional split, you see here Europe, you see America and Asia and the rest of the world. Europe basically is growing by 7%. As I mentioned, as the industry was weaker in the first half year, that is also in the terms of the tariff discussion forward and backward, that we have some kind of stopover for some time, but that is now clarified. So I'm optimistic that this will recover. And Asia is growing, that is in particular China. We are investing into the Chinese business because our strategy is very clearly saying producing in China for the Chinese market together with a Chinese partner. And that's why we have entered a cooperation with a company called Dongcheng in an area close to Shanghai called Jintang, where there we are setting up a factory to produce isotope together with this Chinese partner. And also we entered into a license deal, and that is why the Asia, in particular the Chinese business, was heavily growing, but also in Europe. Europe represents less than half of the business. America is close to 50%. You see 49% for Americas, North and South America. That is why we are really focusing on the North American business. But it goes without saying that Germany, Europe is our headquarters. We have facilities in Berlin, in Braunschweig, in Dresden. So these are our three dots. Next one, please. Radiopharmaceuticals. Radiopharmaceuticals is the engine of the company. That is the radioisotope I was talking about: Y90, yttrium, lutetium, actinium, gallium, technetium. These are the main isotopes which we are producing. But then we are also producing other stuff, products which are used to combine with your radioisotopes. And I mentioned CMO activities on the one side, but even more important is also that we are producing lead shielded working places called hot cells, in which you can work under a safeguarded and protected area, not to be contaminated with radiation. And these hot cells are produced in Dresden for quite some years, and that is increasing business, and that is also added. And here you see the overall performance over the last year. We also acquired in 2022, we acquired a company. That's why there's a lighter bar added to inorganic growth. But even with the organic growth is growing, and our performance is likely to increase also by the end of the year. Please move on to the next slide. Here you see the quarterly split. That is only for those who want to see a more splitted quarter by quarter comparison, also demonstrating the growth year by year and also quarter by quarter from 23, 24, and year to date this year. Next, please. So some key numbers. cash flow, we have cash in our pockets of approximately 100 million, and we have some loans, but that is basically not neglectable, but it is a smaller amount, and we have a strong equity ratio. All in all, our balance sheet covers more than 400 million because we have invested into facilities in Europe, in Asia, in North America, and that is ongoing. And the rest is pretty clear. If you please move on to the next slide, then you see some KPIs. The EBIT adjusted cash flow and as an equity ratio is more than 50%. So looking to these key figures, I can present you here a very satisfying first half year result with a strong EBIT adjusted growth, cash flow, strong performance of ordinary business, but also licenses, which were responsible for the income. And then headcount, I mentioned, we are approximately 1,000 people working around the world. Next one, please. Here again, key figures. You see revenue, cash flow increasing, basically all the numbers which I presented already for the first half year. Now, outlook, move on, please. Outlook, that how will the year perform until the end of the year. We published a guidance by the beginning of the year of net sales of around 320 million and an EBIT adjusted of 78. Now, we have had tariff discussion, we had cyber attacks, we have other issues, and the geopolitical risks, things like that. In spite of all these risks, we do confirm our guidance, and that is unchanged. So that has been just repeated. 320 and bottom 78 million is what our basic corridor in which we are playing until the end of the year will happen. Next and last one, please. That is our calendar for those who want to participate in a more frequent area of events and a sequence of events. Today is August 28th, but there's a Berenberg conference in Munich, there is a Jefferies conference in London, there is Equity Forum in Frankfurt, and next year it will continue with other conferences in Europe, but also in North America. 20 minutes over, and I thank you for your attention. That was my last slide, and now I would be happy to take all your questions you might have. And I give over to the moderator. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Haselmann, for the insights. And we received several questions already, so let's directly dive in with the first one. Can you provide more details on where you expect midterm growth to come from? Will it be from more clinical trials or the potential launch of new radiopharmaceuticals? And if so, which isotopes will be relevant?
Okay. I start with the last one because at the end of the day, we are an isotope producer, and that's why we are interesting to sell our isotopes. We have our existing, the main business is gallium 68. Gallium 68 is used for imaging procedures, and that is performed in a generator that is like a coffee box, lasts for a year, and you can drop out many illusions for the imaging procedures. And now, prostate cancer is the most dominant disease, but unfortunately, or fortunately, how you phrase it, it's not the only disease, not the only cancer area. So pharma industry is entering into other areas where they can also work with gallium 68 in order to find cancer cells. That's why we see a widening process of the indications, and we see more companies entering to the field. Currently, there are basically two companies playing in that field. That is Novartis with a prostate imaging product, and this is an Australian company called TecDAX with an imaging product. There will be more companies entering to the field, either with also prostate cancer or with other areas. And there are more territories in which we are entering, and we are now waiting for the approval in China, and we are also waiting for the approval of Japan. Two big countries. Why is high price? One is a big country, and so we are also entering into new areas. Regional, we want to expand. So gallium is an existing product, and we will explore more businesses and more areas in which we can be active. There are new isotopes, and the most fancy one is called actinium-225 for the treatment of prostate cancer. These clinical studies are currently under its way, and that is now covering also the first and the second question. Currently, if you read what's happening in the area of treatment of prostate cancer, everything is done with either lutetium, which we are producing, or the next upcoming isotope is called actinium, and we are developing, and we will start our regular production by end of the year to serve pharma companies which with their needs. However, in terms of revenue, gallium-68, the generator I was talking about, is the bread and butter and recurring business, whereas actinium is still in a low area for clinical studies, which we are performing. And only by 27, 28, we do expect real market launch of these products, which will then change from clinical to commercial production. I hope I answered all these three questions.
You did already, and there was a follow-up question. Actinium-225 is seen as key future therapy for the isotope. When do you expect it to become a meaningful revenue and also a profit driver?
Yeah, I would say for next year, 26 and 27, it will be pure clinical study supply. So it will be single-digit million, and important but not relevant. It will not move the needle, so to speak. It will only really become a business driver from 28 onwards. We have a production facility here in Europe, and there will be another production area in Asia, and perhaps we are also setting up a third one. So that is in the years to come. I ask for your patience because we are depending on the progress of pharma, and pharma will not launch a product before 28.
Thanks for answering this question. We go on to the next question. Why doesn't Eckert Ziegler supply Novartis for Pluvicto and Lutathera?
Good question. And that is an really embarrassing point that when we were developing our lutetium some years ago, we were waiting and hoping that first we get the order and then we start the production. And when we started the production, we realized that other companies were a little bit faster than we were, and that's why they are the front-loading supplier, and we were only last in row. And it took us some way to catch up. Only in this year, we got all the approvals being necessary to supply pharma. That's why we are now in discussion with Novartis and others. But if I'm asked, do we have here constant supply to Novartis? No, but we are aiming to catch that up in the time to come. And meanwhile, there are other companies like Eli Lilly, which we are supplying also for their products. The lesson learned is that for actinium, we were starting to set up our production line even before having big orders in order not to repeat the same behavior once again, just waiting before we have cash in the pocket and then start production. This time we're doing better. We are setting up the production and then aiming here to be the first delivery company.
Thank you. We received one question, which actually is carrying several questions, so I would do it one by one. To what extent does Eckert Ziegler still benefit from the high demand of Pluvicto through sales of Gallifarm?
Okay, Pluvicto is the therapeutic agent. The more Pluvicto is sold, the more imaging procedures have to be done beforehand. So the better Pluvicto is accepted, the better it is for our gallium-based imaging product coming out of the generator. So we are participating positively. It is a one-to-one ratio? No, because a generator is used in a radiopharmacy for some time, and then it can be used up to the full capacity before a second one is ordered or a third one is ordered. So if now more Pluvicto is going to be sold, that will indirectly also have a positive effect on our gallium, but it will not go in parallel. I would rather say if the sales of Pluvicto and other products is going up steadily, then our sales in generators are rather than a step function. So it is stable, then it jumps, then it is stable, then it is jumping again, and so on and so forth. So that is why we are expanding our production capacity here in Europe to be prepared for a higher volume in the need and demand of generators.
Thank you. And the generator is the right keyword. What is your market share for gallium generators, and how do you see the market share of gallium 68 versus fluor in Pluvicto treatments going forward? Unfortunate.
Yeah, it's once again, it's for Pluvicto treatment, you need tissue. What's happened before that is the imaging procedure. Now, if you talk about imaging procedure, then you have either FAT-based compounds or you have gallium-68 compounds. I would say the market is split at 50-50. In Europe, it's stronger by gallium. In North America, it is also probably 50-50. It's a little bit difficult to measure, but basically it's 50-50. And in terms of market share of our gallium business, we also have to differentiate between the regions. In North America, there is one big competitor, a Belgian company called IRE, and then it's Eckert and Ziegler. And as of today, if you ask me, then I would say it's 50-50. Perhaps we are slightly higher, but you can say it's 50-50 between the two gallium generator competitors. In Europe, we are a strong market leader with our product.
Thank you. Actually, on my side, there has been a short interruption in the connection, but I hope this answer was yeah, it received by all the participants. So we will move on with the next question, which is also going into the investments you have mentioned already. As you have invested in several production sites, how does the capex profile look like for the next years,
Yeah.
maintenance versus expansion capex?
Okay. So we are setting up, as I mentioned, a production site in A, China, B, South America, C, North America, and D, Europe. So we have 4 construction sites. We are doing that together with a Chinese partner. In South America, we acquired a company called Technonuclear in 22, and we are expanding our production facility there. North America, in the Boston area, we are setting up a lutetium production site in order to mirror what we have already in Europe and Germany, in order to be redundant and also to supply North American companies directly. And the third one is, as I mentioned, our gallium and production facility here in Germany, which we're expanding. All that together will probably by the next years in the area of 20 million year by year for capex, which we are investing, and that is financed out of the cash flow which we are generating year by year.
Thank you. Also, a financial question and regarding the tariff situation, to which extent are you impacted by the current tariff imposed by the US administration, and how has that changed your margin profile for the US market?
Okay. If you want to really understand the tariff discussion, then basically you have 3 scenarios, and within these 3 scenarios, you have then also a differentiation by products. And above everything is a big question mark how this is going to continue in the years to come. It is exports from Europe to North America, it's exports from North America to Europe, and it's from somewhere into China. These are the 3 possible tariff assumptions or situations which might occur. The most important one is the export from Europe into North America. And there, our biggest product, which is the gallium generator, which is produced here, is as far as of today exempted from tariffs because it's seen as an absolutely high medical need. And that's why there are only 2 producers. One is Eckert and Ziegler, and the other one is a competitor. I mentioned both are produced in Europe, and that's why, like other products, these are exempted from tariffs. Now, there are other smaller products where 15% is imposed to these products, and also important but not really relevant in that respect. And here we are forwarding these tariffs to the final customer in North America. In the other way, from North America to Europe, we don't see big impact. There is the third element, that is China. And that is basically, as of today, still under discussion. It will change from one day to the other, but we are confident that also their solution is going to be found.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, but not out of questions, Mr. Haselmann. We will take the questions and forward them to you, so you have got the chance potentially to reply to them, and we will get back to investors. And for going on with the conference today, I would like to come to an end with you, but the next presentation is also already started. So let's move on, and I would really say thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Haselmann, for your insightful insights you provided, and for all participants, you will receive a short email already, and we will ask for your feedback that we
Yeah.
will share
Okay.
with the
Perfect.
company.
Send me
So
all the questions which you want to raise. I'm happy to answer them, and seeing all of you at one of the next conferences. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
welcome. Thank you.